Warning, this video contains discussions about hospitals, death, and other uncomfortable topics. Viewer discretion is advised. So I know a lot of you are asking where I've gone for the past month. A few weeks ago I was playing Counter-Strike with War Owl, when all of a sudden I nearly died.
Well,
Could go suicide.
Yeah, I'm watching it.
Prophet?
What happened?
Okay, Prophet's AFK.
What happened?
Oh, that's bad.
What happened?
I went into cardiac
They both.
Now I know it's been a while since I made a video, and there's a good reason for that. Now as you guys know, I have a pretty severe heart condition. In previous videos, I talked about how I went into cardiac arrest back in 2012, though more recently it happened again in September of 2021. In all honesty, it's been an upward progression where I've been getting more and more sporadic, dangerous arrhythmia. Basically, these would come in two major forms, ventricular tachycardia and atrial flutter. Now, the majority of my life I've been treated for ventricular tachycardia. I have a pacemaker defibrillator ICD implanted in my chest and all that fun stuff. That being said, I never really had any issues with atrial flutter. So because of this, my pacemaker did not have an atrial line. So why is this important? Well, as I mentioned, my heart has been getting worse and eventually something's gotta give. It just so happens that the timing was right in the middle of a game with War Owl. Here's some footage of the actual game. Now, as usual, he put together a pretty fun event. Basically, we were playing my favorite map, DDoS 2, but the bomb sites were randomized. They could show up in a lot of different locations, and so could the spawn points. Luckily, he invited me into this because he knows how much I absolutely love the map DDoS 2. After all, how do I put this? It's my map. And honestly, everything was going great until I had to clutch this one round with a scout.
God,
Target.
Nice. Okay, get some smokes. One city.
I got force one.
Look in the smoke!
I need another smoke.
2 bullets.
Nice.
1
This
bullet.
last guy CT.
Oh good, it was
Nice.
There's an AK.
Now usually when you clutch a round, your heart rate can increase a little bit, but it'll adjust immediately afterwards and go back to your normal rhythm. But something was different this time. My heart rate didn't just increase a little bit, it increased a lot, which is strange because it was a fun time and I wasn't feeling nervous at all. I tried using my usual breathing techniques to lower my heart rate, but nothing was fixing it. Either way, it didn't matter. I was on DDoS 2 and I needed to win this game now. There was a little bit of back and forth and the teams were nicely balanced. Occasionally the bomb sites would spawn in traditional spots and so would the spawn points, so I was able to get a nice little mid pick.
I can,
Do
because
you want the
I
corner smoke?
remember that that's a feature.
Just drop a flash, yeah, yeah.
I'm smoking
One
corner.
down B.
Flash Wallens.
On the counter-terrorist side, we really began to take over this game. But my heart still continued to feel like something was absolutely wrong, and it wasn't slowing down. Then suddenly I was in another end-round situation, but instead of my heart quickening a little bit, something happened. My body went numb, but tingly and cold. I collapsed out of my chair to the ground. We were so close to winning, but there was nothing I could do. I was blacking out. Now, this is when my pacemaker defibrillator is supposed to take over. It began to charge up, but it didn't shock my heart like it's supposed to do. My heart rate returned to that weird fast rhythm that I had experienced earlier in the game after the scout clutch. It wasn't like a normal heartbeat, but a jiggle, like a really fast jiggle. The good news is I wasn't dead and the sensation of my body was returning. The bad news was I knew I wasn't going to be able to get up. It took a while, but I slowly pushed myself up into a sitting position. I told everyone I wouldn't be able to continue and I had to contact my doctor. Now the good thing is that my pacemaker records major events, so I was able to send a transmission to my doctor. She read out the report and basically this is what happened. During the clutch round, my heart went into atrial flutter. Atrial flutter occurs when a short circuit in the heart causes the upper chamber, the atria, to pump very rapidly. But it's not like a normal beat where every pump is causing the blood to circulate. In fact, a lot of the blood will sit in the heart and after some time begin to coagulate. Atrial flutter is dangerous not only because of the symptoms, but because it can cause a stroke that may result in permanent disability or death. Now what happened that caused me to almost black out? That was ventricular tachycardia. It occurs when the lower chamber of the heart beats too fast to pump well and the body doesn't receive enough oxygenated blood. So basically I had both of these going against me, and the ventricular tachycardia brought my heart rate up to something like 270 BPM. There was only one problem though. After that had ended, I was still in atrial flutter and it wasn't breaking. Now usually a pacemaker could correct this, but I didn't have an atrial wire, so off to the hospital I went. Of course, the hospital I went to didn't have a great cardiac unit that dealt with pre-existing heart conditions. So they transferred me to another hospital in Miami that was more capable of handling the situation. The only problem was I was going to have to wait throughout the weekend to get the procedure that would reset my heart. Fast forward to Monday. The procedure is successful and my heart goes back to pretty much normal. Well, my normal, not technically normal for a normal person, but they were worried that it may trigger again. So they wanted to do an ablation to prevent future atrial flutter. This is where they burn or freeze your heart in a certain way to block electrical signals. In my case, they were going to burn it. Now, they had talked to me in the past about doing ablation to prevent ventricular tachycardia, but said it was too dangerous and eventually decided not to do it. Keep in mind, I don't have a normal heart, it's actually been wired backward. On top of that, they wanted me to put in a new pacemaker, one that had both a ventricular lead and an atrial lead. But we were going to need to wait for the surgeon, and it would take over a week. For that week, my heart was actually as good as it's been in quite some time. But they kept telling me that this procedure would benefit me. Eventually, the procedure came around, they did the ablation and added the new pacemaker. Obviously, I was going to have quite a bit of recovery time after this. The good news was that they were very happy about how successful the ablation was. The bad news is the pacemaker was set to be far more active, and as someone who has a high sensitivity to being paced, it is an absolute nightmare. So far the recovery hasn't been great. At least for now, my heart has been far worse than it ever was before the most recent procedures. So where does that leave me? Will I ever be able to play Counter-Strike again? Will my heart improve enough that I can resume my usual activities? At this point, I honestly don't know. But don't just assume that I'm going to quit and let the channel die. I will be continuing Counter-Strike content. After all, I always looked at Counter-Strike more like a sport rather than a game. And it's my sport. So just like ex-pro basketball players still follow basketball, I'll be continuing to follow Counter-Strike. And I will always continue to do what I can to clean up and strengthen the community. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and stay subscribed for future videos. Thank you all for your support, and as always, have a great day. Oh yeah, and I still will not lose on DDoS 2.